Hi everybody, my name is Hayden Llewellyn and I'm the Chief Executive of the EWC, the Education Workforce Council. I'm delighted you've been able to join me this evening, for what is the first in our new series of Your EWC webinars. What we're looking to do with these webinars is just provide you with a little bit more information about the EWC, give you an insight into our work and give you the chance to ask questions. We are an organisation that is out and about a lot. We're regularly in schools, colleges, work-based learning providers, etc. But we feel this is an extra opportunity to talk to our registrants. So in this one this evening, what we're going to do is give you a general overview of the EWC and hone in specifically on some of our services. So the first slide that I have when we get to it is just the overview of the session. And I'm essentially going to cover three areas. Firstly, I'm going to talk about what the EWC is, what do we do, and talk mainly about what legislation says. Then I'm going to hone in specifically on our registration and regulatory role, which is the main area that the EWC has been set up to do. But we have other statutory functions as well, and I'm going to cover some of those in addition. And then I'm going to close by encouraging you to have a little think about some of the services that we provide to make the most of your EWC registration. So I'm going to get into the detail, beginning with the background to the EWC. The organisation actually has been around for nearly 24 years. In the year 2000, we were formed under a different name called the General Teaching Council for Wales. And our role was to register and regulate school teachers only. At that time, under the Teaching and Higher Education Act, which was a piece of England-Wales legislation, that set up two general teaching councils, one in England and another one in Wales. There'd already been one in Scotland for many years. Subsequently, similar bodies were set up in Ireland and Northern Ireland. In around 2011, the General Teaching Council for England was abolished. But in Wales, the minister, Labour Minister, Leighton Andrews, said, I'm not doing that. And he consulted for a number of years, culminating in new legislation, to rename the General Teaching Council for Wales to become the EWC. But also, he expanded our responsibilities to register and regulate others over and above just school teachers. His thinking being that increasingly education and training was being delivered by others as well. Support staff, those in FE, work-based learning, youth work, etc. So it was the Education Wales Act that set the EWC up. And in the Education Wales Act 2014, that brought us into being in April 15, it says that the EWC has been set up to do three things. Firstly, to contribute to improving standards of teaching and the quality of learning in Wales. Secondly, to maintain and improve standards of professional conduct amongst teachers and others. But importantly, we do those things to protect learners, the public, parents, and so on. So we very much are a body there for the public interest. And essentially, in those three circles there, you'll see the word standards more than once. Essentially, we are a standards body. So if you delve into the legislation a little bit more, so underneath the Education Wales Act, there's secondary legislation that goes into more detail about why the EWC was set up and what we are to do. And essentially, we have three main statutory functions. Firstly, a regulatory aspect. And under that, we do four main things. Maintain a register of anybody working in education and training in Wales. Have in place a code of conduct and practice for those individuals. In small number of instances, investigate and hear cases where our registrants get into difficulty and breach the code. And finally, we have an important role to accredit teacher training programs. So our core role is a regulatory one. Secondly, in legislation, we are required and able to provide advice to government. And thirdly, we have a responsibility to promote careers in any of the education professions. Then over and above that, within the legislation, we have an ability to do work for government And we do that in a number of areas. Some of them are listed there. For example, we've done extensive work for many years in respect of teacher induction. We oversee a national e-portfolio for our registrants called the Professional Learning Passport. Any work we do for government is not funded by registration fees. The government have to fund EWC for that. And then the final main aspect of our work is we're able to bid for commercial contracts. The notable one that we've delivered in recent years is the Youth Work Quality Mark. One of the things people often say is, well, we thought you should do this, or we would like you to do this. And it's very important to be clear where the EWC's responsibilities start and end. So some of the things that occasionally are misinformation are the things on the left, right-hand side of that slide. So we are not a trade union. We have no remit for pay terms and conditions, and we're not a body that lobbies on behalf of the professionals that we register. Those are trade union functions. You may be aware that there's been a recent review of what the government terms the middle tier. Various organisations such as consortia, local authorities, etc. And one of the misunderstandings, again, that's sometimes had in respect to what the EWC is that sometimes there's a view that we're a provider of professional learning or CPD, or we're an organisation that should be there to help improve school improvement schools. We're not. We've not been set up to do those things. One final point. If you compare us to bodies similar to ourselves in other countries and other professions, there's a small number of aspects of our statutory powers that are different, or there's some inconsistencies to our powers. So I've listed those on the right-hand side. The notable one is that the professional standards that anybody registered with us is required to adhere to and follow, you as registrants via your professional body, the EWC, hasn't been vested with having the responsibility for setting and maintaining those standards. Government has chosen to retain those standards. So some comparisons between the EWC and other organisations. Doctors, lawyers, nurses, accountants, social workers, engineers, physios, chiropodists, etc. have bodies like the EWC. So if you're a doctor, you'll be registered with the General Medical Council. If you're a nurse, it would be the Nursing and Midwifery Council, etc. So there's some examples on the screen there of bodies like us. Essentially now you have a situation in the UK and further afield that most of the professions that where the public have a legitimate interest in who works in those professions because they're service users, generally the people in those professions will be registered and regulated. Have a quick look at UK and Ireland. As I mentioned, there is no General Teaching Council in England, abolished. Scotland, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland have bodies like the EWC. Interestingly, they only register either just school teachers or teachers and FE lecturers. They haven't got the breadth of powers that the EWC has. So what I'm going to do now, as I said in my introduction, I'm going to move fairly quickly into the core areas of EWC's statutory responsibilities. So where I'm going to begin is with our regulatory work. So just to confirm, you probably know that anybody working in education and training in Wales must be registered with the EWC. It's a legal requirement. So that legal requirement falls on the individual person and also their employer. So anybody working in education and training in Wales unregistered, both are breaking the law. We currently have nearly 91,000 registrants, spanning schools, further education, youth work and work-based learning. The most recent groups to join the register were staff in independent schools and colleges over the past year. Shortly, 2 further groups will join the register. If you tot up the numbers on the slide, you'll get more than 91,000. And the reason being, some of our registrants work across multiple areas, so register in more than one category. So for example, somebody may work as an FE lecturer and an FE technician perhaps, to part-time roles, so they're registered in both categories. You can see the biggest group of our registrants is school learning support workers. Every year, we receive approximately 17,000 new applications for registration. For example, newly qualified teachers, somebody who wants to work as a member of support staff for the first time, somebody leaving industry to become a lecturer in an FE college, perhaps. Of those 17,000 applications, every year we receive about 200 of those where we have concerns about the individuals and whether it's appropriate for them to register and work in Wales. So about 200, but the reality is, despite the 200 we investigate and look into further, it will probably be about 3 or 4 per year that we refuse registration to. So very small numbers. But what I've done on the slide there is give you some examples of where in the past we've refused registration to somebody because we've concerns about them working in education in Wales. So on the right-hand side there, you can see where we've refused registration for previous criminal histories. And indeed, we've had applications from individuals wanting to work in Wales and register with us, where there have been as many as 70 previous criminal convictions. Some of them really serious, some of them involving imprisonment. So in instances like that, it can often be the case that we say, look, we don't think you're suitable to work. If you look on the left-hand side, we also refuse registration sometimes because of somebody's previous employment history. They may have been dismissed from a job previously, for example, in another country working as a teacher, or in a totally different profession. One of the things we often see is applicants applying for registration as support staff with us who've previously worked in social care. And sometimes the registration refusals that we make have been of that ilk, somebody looking to move from one sector into education. The second main area of our regulatory function is to have in place a code of conduct and practice. All of those other professions I referred to, the doctors, lawyers, nurses, accountants, social workers, and so on, have a code. So if, for example, you're not happy with your experience with your doctor or your nurse or your lawyer, you can jump on their website, have a look at their code and see whether you think they've breached it. If you're really concerned, you can raise a concern with their professional body, their regulator. So the EWC code is there to help you as registrants, so you know what's right, what's not right, help your judgments and your behaviours. It's also there to help guide learners, parents, and so on as to what they can expect. One of the complementary aspects we have to the code is we have a huge suite of good practice guides on our website that you can use as registrants to help you follow the code. By far the most downloaded one of our good practice guides is the one on using social media responsibly. And we do lots of training on that particular subject as well. Have a look at that slide. You may have seen that before, you may not, but those are real cases where the EWC has investigated and taken action in relation to one of its registrants. So we may have struck somebody off, for example, or required retraining. I don't put that slide up to make fun of the individuals or sensationalize those, but to explain to you that the EWC has a legal statutory responsibility to investigate certain cases regarding its registrants. Employers have a legal requirement to refer matters to the EWC if they dismiss somebody or somebody leaves in a particular instance. Also, the police refer matters to us. So there are a bunch of real examples where the EWC has taken action. The reality is, every year, only 0.1% of our registrants get into difficulty and are referred to us to investigate. So the reality is 99.9% of our registrants in any year do not get into difficulties that we investigate. But those individuals there potentially call your professions into disrepute, and that's why we as a body investigate those matters. So a couple of other areas of our core work. I mentioned in one of my early slides that we have a responsibility to deal with initial teacher education in that we accredit teacher training programs. The reason EWC became involved in this work and was given a statutory function for this in around 2018 was that Professor John Furlong, on behalf of Welsh Government, reviewed initial teacher training in Wales because there were some concerns about quality. New national criteria, brand new accredited programs. So the EWC has a role in accrediting teacher training programs. So in other words, teacher training can only be provided in Wales if the EWC says the programs are fit for purpose. We can refuse a program accreditation, we've done it. We can withdraw accreditation, we've done that. Interestingly, in our other regulated groups, for example, FE, work-based learning, youth work, we don't have a similar statutory function. Although there was a report last year advocating that in future, the EWC do something similar for FE lecturer qualifications. So touching briefly then on our two other areas of statutory function, I said we've a statutory duty to provide advice to government and others. In practice, we do that in a number of different ways. We sit on probably nearly 50 national steering groups and fora where we advise on workforce issues. We also provide advice on invitation quite often or respond to consultations that are from the Welsh Government or the Senedd or other bodies. And also we use our data. So the register means we've got a huge, tremendous source of data about the workforce in Wales. So in a number of different ways, we provide advice, we give information out about the workforce. And really, our data is our crown jewels in terms of intelligence in that regard. Final area then I wanted to talk to you about our statutory remit was the promotion of careers in respect to the education professions. So the main way in which we do this is the Welsh Government asked us to develop a national website, which is called Educators Wales. It's live, and it does three things. It provides career information on working in education in Wales. It provides links to the professional learning opportunities that are available to you. And finally, there is now a national jobs portal where you can look for education jobs in Wales. That portal has more education jobs than any other portal or website in Wales. So if you think of commercial websites, there are more jobs every day on Educators Wales. So what is happening now the website is live, people are signing up and creating their profiles. So if you as a registrant have not created your profile for Educators Wales, you're missing out because this is where you'll find the most education jobs every day in Wales. So if you haven't set up your Educators Wales profile, I encourage you to do it. To complement the website, we have an advice and advocacy service at EWC where you can talk to people about careers. And we attend lots and lots of events. We're present at lots and lots of different activities where people can come and talk to us about maybe wanting to be a teacher or a TA or an FE lecturer or a youth worker. So there is now a service to help people get into education. So my final slide before we stop for any questions in the chat there is just as I said at the outset, to tell you a little bit more about EWC's services and help for you and to maximize the use of your registration with us. As I mentioned earlier, we actually are out and about an awful lot as an organization. We do lots of training in schools, colleges, youth work organizations, work-based learning providers. And we talk to staff about our work. We do a lot of sessions around fitness to practice and a lot of sessions about the code of conduct and practice. But those aren't the only training sessions that we do. Probably our next most popular training session is to help schools, colleges, authorities, and the staff there use a professional learning passport. One of the early criticisms of the PLP was it couldn't be used on a whole organizational basis, maybe for performance management, but now it can be. So if you maybe as a school want to use it in that way, get in touch, book a session with us and we'll work with you. Lots of other things available from the EWC. The National Resource EBSCO, you can access free books and journals at absolutely no cost. We're now putting on regular podcasts that are proving to be quite popular, actually, on various subjects, well-being, for example. And we run a number of events each year. Increasingly, we're working online, which is easier for you, but all of the things we can do, we can come to school, come to college, we can do face-to-face, we can do Twilight. And as I say, we do lots of virtual work as well. So please, if you haven't engaged too much with the EWC, tap into some of those things. Invite us to your workplace. Come and talk to us. So that's a final slide, which is just information. So I always say, please get in touch.